The following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Yeah! Go Cowboys!
Let's go, baby!
Are you ready for a break?
Yes.
Are you ready for a break?
Absolutely.
Ready for a break?
Yeah, and so much for that.
It's time for The Break on DallasCowboys.com.
We were on the break!
With Ambar Garcia, Brian Broaddus, Nick Harris, and Derek Eagleton.
It is Tuesday, August 20th, 2024, Season 20, Episode number 18. Welcome to the latest edition of The Break Live from Oxnard, California. It is our final show here in the sunny confines of Oxnard, California, before we head back to the heat box they called Frisco, Texas. I think it's 106 today or something like that. It is a sunny and beautiful 61 right now in California, so we'll miss that part of it, but other than that, I'm very ready to go ahead and head back to Frisco, get back to the family, and do some regular stuff, get into this regular season. That's really the big deal. Today we're going to be talking about the Cowboys' second preseason game. We'll have some names I'm going to throw out to you guys, some positions I'm going to throw out to you guys, get your opinions on where you think things sit after that second preseason game. I think, obviously, where we start, and it's where we started last week, but I think really evaluating Trey Lance and his performance. Tell me what you think of where he was this week and what you saw from him, and also then give me a comparison to what you saw from him in week one and how much that has changed.
You know, I think the thing with Trey Lance is you were just, as you mentioned, Derek, looking for improvement. You just wanted to see, were there problems against the Rams in the red zone? How accurate was he? Was there decision-making involved in what he was able to do? I kind of feel like, guys, they tailored the game plan to his strengths a little bit more in this game. I felt like in week one it was, let's see Trey Lance pocket passer, throwing the ball 40 times. The game against the Raiders, it seemed like there was more the RPO stuff. There were things that they were kind of plays a little bit, like I say, to his strengths. So I was happy to what I saw with him. You know, when he faced the blitz, if you check into the metrics and how that looked, 7 of 8 against the blitz. Where the week before against pressure, there was a little bit of some problems there. He probably didn't handle that particularly well. But I felt like that the plays that he was involved with, there were some really good ones where you're like, okay, you see athletic ability, you see the talent, you see the ability to get the ball out, you see the mobility and stuff. You know, there's going to be some issues with accuracy. That's kind of his game right now. But I thought he looked more comfortable, he looked more confident, and the team moved the ball that way offensively because of how he played.
Yeah, a lot more confident, a lot more composed. The first half, the time of possession battle was really wonky, so I don't really feel like he got going in full stride until deep into that second half. But whenever he did get going deep into that second half, we saw that confidence, and it was throws across the middle, and it was throws outside the numbers, and that was the biggest criticism I took away from the game against the Rams, is that he couldn't push anything to the outside, and when he did, he was leading receivers wrong, or he was leading them away from the sticks. But he was putting balls in really good places on Saturday against the Raiders. Really liked the way he used his feet. We saw the athleticism being used a little bit more. We saw the read option being used a little bit more. So McCarthy was even helping him out in that area in some instances. His footwork is still really bad, and I think it's definitely going to have to take a step forward in that department. But if we are comparing from game 1 to game 2, significant improvement, and if he can take as big of a step going into game 3, then you could start to see the vision on Trey Lance going into the future. And I know I mentioned it on the Camping Out podcast, but they have a few different options when it comes to Lance. It's make him QB2 this year. I don't feel like that would be the right decision. Make him QB2 next year, which I feel like could be the right decision, or use him as some sort of value right now. I mean, you look at some teams, you look at the Raiders, I think Trey Lance is better than both of those guys coming out of that game on Saturday. So, there's going to be some options that the front office will toy with, but I think truly they want to develop this guy, and they want to have him behind Dak Prescott for the future.
Nick, can I ask you a question? If Trey Lance is quarterback 3, do you even look into re-signing him or trying to extend him after this?
Yeah, I do, because you look at these two guys. You look at Cooper Rush and Trey Lance. They're both on expiring deals. You have Cooper Rush, who's going to be 31 going into 2025, and Trey Lance being 25 going into 2025. You look at the youth and the ability to be able to develop and the ceiling, which one has reached his ceiling already, which one probably still has some ways to go. I think if you're looking at it that way, I understand why you would want to bring back Trey Lance and make him the QB2 and give Cooper Rush an opportunities elsewhere. And that's not to say that Cooper Rush hasn't done a great job in Dallas. I think he has. I think at that point it's just you kind of look around the room and you say, okay, if Dak Prescott were to go down with the injury, do I want another 30-year-old plus guy to be able to carry the load if he has to over the course of 6 games? Like who's to say he goes down? I think when it comes to just preparing for the worst, that's what you have to do whenever you're factoring in these quarterback 2 situations. I think Trey Lance would maybe be the better bet.
Maybe I'm strange about this, but if something happens to Dak Prescott, I want Trey Lance playing.
Yeah.
And I want Trey Lance.
This year?
Yes.
Okay.
And I want Trey Lance playing because I want to try and figure it out that way.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work, now I know. Now I know that in 2025, I have to do this or I have to do that in order for my quarterback room. So,
Can I give you a caveat to that? Because
Yeah.
I agree with your thought process. I'll say this. Let's say we're mid-season, and we're knocking on wood because we don't want to lose Dak.
Yeah.
Like,
No,
Dak's your
absolutely
guy.
not.
But if you're at mid-season, and let's say the Cowboys are 7-1. Now I disagree with you a little bit. Now I think I want to stick with Cooper Rush because and also how long is Dak out? Is he gone for the season? Is he gone for just a few games? If he's gone,
say if he's out for the whole season.
If he's out for the rest of the season and they're 7-1, I'm going to ride with Cooper Rush for at least 3 or 4 games. I want to see what happens in those 3 or 4 games.
Yeah.
If they all of a sudden get on a slide and they're not winning, that's when I say, okay, I would much rather, if I'm already losing, I'd rather go with the guy that's going to give me an indication of where he's going to be for next year because I'm making decisions about next year. If let's say they are midway through the season and they're 3-4 or 3-5 and they lose Dak Prescott, now I agree with you because now I'm thinking, okay, for the future, I want to see, because I don't think necessarily either one of those 2 guys is necessarily going to take me from a deficit to now getting back into the playoffs. I don't necessarily see that, but I do want to see what I have for next year. I think I have a good handle on Cooper Rush. I don't know that I have a good handle on Trey Lance. And I said that on our show the other night. I said, I wonder at this point, are you going to run out of time with Trey Lance? Like, you see some progression, you see some things you like. I was talking to someone the other day, and I said, he reminds me when he's running the ball, he reminds me of Kaepernick. Like that long stride, very
covering
athletic.
ground.
We saw him in that game last over the weekend. There was one run where he took off around the outside, and I thought there was no way he was going to get the corner. And he got the corner and turned the corner.
Right.
And I was like, man, he can take up, he can move fast enough to actually eat up a lot of ground really quickly. And that excites me because in today's NFL, having a mobile quarterback that can do those kinds of things can really win you some ball games. So I think there's some things you really like. I just don't know if they're going to have enough time to flesh all that out and make sure he can actually play the position long term before they have to make a decision.
Let me ask you guys this question then. Do you think that Cooper Rush is a different quarterback from what you've seen at camp? Because I've seen a quarterback that's more willing to throw the ball down the field.
I've seen that.
You mentioned the comebacks, the deep outs, the deep shots down the field. Maybe Cooper Rush, with all the Trey Lance hype, has said, you know what do I have to lose? I'm going to be the 2nd or 3rd here. Might as well try and push the ball a little bit more.
Yeah.
If that's the case, maybe you do have a different quarterback here. Maybe Cooper Rush, to me, was always a very by the book kind of guy. But if there's a willingness to have the offense run down the field like you would with Dak, I would be okay with Cooper Rush. I just feel like, though, with Trey Lance, it gives me an element that we see teams winning with in the National Football League.
Yeah, we saw it in that first game whenever he pushed the ball downfield to Jalen Brooks down the left sideline.
Right.
And we've seen Trey Lance try to push the ball downfield on a couple of different occasions in games, and it hasn't quite worked out. So I think if it's a situation regardless, this is my personal belief, if it's a situation regardless, 3-5 or 7-1, and Dak Prescott were to go down, I want Cooper Rush in there. I think that's a guy who he knows the offensive system really well. I think he matches he matches with these receivers really well. He has experience with these guys. Not to say that Trey Lance doesn't. I mean, there's some young receivers. All they know is Trey Lance, working with the second and third team. But I would want Cooper in there right now. It's too much inconsistency from Trey Lance. There's too much hesitance in the pocket still. Yes, he has improved from week 1 to week 2, but I want somebody that's confident in the pocket, and I think Cooper Rush is confident. Can he do everything? No, absolutely not. But I think he does do enough to be able to warrant really good quarterback play when the time is needed.
Well, I'll also tell you this: if they're 3-5, another reason why I think I'd probably want Cooper Rush to not be the guy is because this is going to sound weird and maybe a little bit selfish, but I'm like, at 3-5, I don't think I'm going to go deep into the playoffs, even if I somehow manage to get back in the playoffs. Give me the best draft pick I could possibly get, because I may be in a situation where I need a quarterback. And if you're in that situation, now you want to be as high in the draft as you possibly can. So for me, if I'm at 3-5 and I lose Dak, that's at that point where I'm like, okay, give me the top pick I can possibly get. I'm playing for next year at that point.
Yeah.
So for me, give me the quarterback I need to develop and see more of to decide, is this going to be a player for me, and is this somebody I really want to invest in?
Who makes that decision?
No, I'm going to ask you this question real quick. I'll get to that. Who?
It ain't going to be me.
It ain't going to be me either.
They don't. The last time they listened to me was 2005. That was a long time ago. The way you're evaluating it right now, you don't see Trey Lance as being a quarterback of the future here. If Dak were to move on
as a starting quarterback in the future, not as of right now. I think it would take after Dak Prescott's next contract, and if Trey Lance was still around at that point.
Okay.
But I'm sure by that point Lance is ready to move on and find some greener pastures.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like I say, it's an interesting thought, because I've seen some positivity, but I understand.
Yeah.
I understand where people are with Trey Lance, and if he's really that far away.
Yeah.
And to you, he is that far away.
I think he is. Now, again, if we were talking about, if this was Raiders break, I'd be like, yeah, this guy's ready to go. Like, throw him out there.
Yeah.
But it's
a
not.
starter.
He's a starter. Let's get it going. But I don't see him, just with the way this team has. Even if they move on from Dak Prescott, let's say next offseason, they're going to draft a guy. That's most likely going to be the case. I feel like they're going to draft a guy regardless of if Dak moves on or not next year. So there's going to be a young quarterback in that room, either battling with him or they're going to have to make a decision between the two when it comes to next offseason. So I don't see it. I don't see a reality where Trey Lance is the starter going into any season.
Look, I'm going to be honest with you. Until Dak and the Cowboys come to a resolution on that part, everything is at play.
That's fair.
We don't know what's going to happen, because it's just like there are too many factors to really know. And that's why when you asked that question about, like, what do you think of Trey for the future? Like, I don't know right now.
Yeah.
We may get through the end of the season and things just fall completely off the rails with regards to Dak wanting to be here. Like, Dak still has a lot of control on this too.
Absolutely.
Dak can say, I choose to do something different.
Right.
The point is, until that deal is done, everything is a possibility in my mind. And so I approach it as, hey, let me find out as much as I can possibly find out about all three quarterbacks, and then we'll see. Next year, Cooper Rush may be your starting quarterback. Who knows what happens? Yeah. But until that's done, I think that's the first piece that has to actually come down, and then you can start figuring out what happens with the rest of it. All right, we're going to take our first break. When we come back, we're going to get to some standout players from this game. I want to hear from you guys on that.
Not Trey Lance.
And then we'll also see some players that you guys think going into this final preseason game have a lot of work to do and need a really great performance in order to solidify their roster spots. We'll do that when we come back. DallasCowboys.com radio.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
If you can't be at the stadium, there's no better way to watch your Cowboys than on an LG OLED Evo TV. That's because everything you see is more lifelike. Every play, every hit. I mean, you might as well be on the sidelines. That's how clear it is. It's all thanks to LG's legendary technology. Perfect black, over 8.3 million self-lit pixels. No one comes close. LG OLED Evo is the best TV in the game for a reason. See for yourself at lg.com/OLED Evo.
Don't put off getting your oil changed, Dallas. Take 5 Oil Change, a proud partner of the Cowboys, is faster than you think. There's no appointment needed and no waiting room. Yep, you heard that correctly. Take 5 is so fast, you don't even have to get out of your car. You can take advantage of Take 5's fast, friendly, and simple service at any of their locations across the Dallas area. And remember, at Take 5, you stay in your car because they're faster than you think. Take 5, the official oil change of the Dallas Cowboys.
If you shout, "How about them Cowboys?" you have that undeniable passion that's the heart of Cowboys Nation. And if you like to drink Dr. Pepper, you love the unique blend of its 23 flavors. Together, your one-of-a-kind fandom paired with the one-of-a-kind taste of a delicious ice-cold Dr. Pepper is the game day lineup that can't be beat. Better yet, gather your Cowboys and Dr. Pepper fan friends to watch the next game and crack open a delicious ice-cold Dr. Pepper for everyone. The wins will be even tastier. It's a pepper thing.
Life doesn't stop when the economy is uncertain. The market might not care you have a wedding to plan or a kid to put through school. And inflation doesn't know you've got a family to feed. But Bank of America does, and is here to help. With digital tools to help you save and local experts nearby, you can keep life moving forward the way you need it to. Bank of America. What would you like the power to do? Learn more at bankofamerica.com. Bank of America N.A., member FDIC, equal credit opportunity lender.
Back to the break.
LG OLED Evo is the best TV in the game, but don't take our word for it. Digital Trends said the LG OLED G4 has the best picture quality they've ever seen. See for yourself at lg.com/OLED Evo. Come on, Ambar. Come on. Coming for your job.
Welcome back. Second
well
segment
done,
of
sir.
the break.
Well done.
Live from Oxnard, California. Let's get back into the...
Oh, never mind. That's the next one. I'm bad. See, I blew it. I blew it. Never mind.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I was pointing at blockchain, but that's the next segment.
Next segment.
Actually, no, it is the second
Oh, it is this segment.
You're right. Yeah.
Oh,
this
I
segment
made it.
is about
Let's go.
blockchain.com.
Ding.
You haven't been on the show long enough for you to be correcting me, but you're right. You're absolutely right. All right. So let's talk about standout players. I want you guys to give me some players that stood out to you in this last game that you thought had really great performances. Let's start with you, Nick.
Yeah, I really loved what I saw from Deuce Vaughn. Missing a lot of camp with that hamstring injury, really tough, especially this specific camp, because that running back is in desperate need of a playmaker. And I think we saw a little bit of a glimpse of that in that game against the Raiders. I mean, that one play where he bounces out to the outside, he cuts back, and he makes a corner just look foolish. That's a corner that's playing on Sundays. That's not a corner who he was maybe bouncing off tacklers in Seattle last year against. That's a legit player. So he looked really good. 5 rushes for 34 yards. Almost 7 yards per pop. I really love what he brought to that running back room on Saturday. I think I think there's now a path for him to be able to stamp a roster spot this upcoming Saturday. I'm not going to say he made the roster last Saturday, but I think there's a pretty big path now for him to be able to stamp that going forward. And then, Keemon Hall. It feels like every time he steps on the field, he's making sure his name is being spoken about, and the 70-yard pick six was obviously huge. We're going to get into potential bubble guys. I think he's starting to rise into that bubble, and it's starting to push some names down, maybe further down the list that you're like, okay, like he's on watch. So I really love the performance from those two guys. And Justin Rogers started off the game pretty well. I didn't necessarily love it, but I liked what he brought to the table in the absence of Mozzie Smith. I think there's a path for him in the future to be able to get some reps this season. So those were the 3 guys that really stood out. As far as guys that maybe didn't, I'm sure we'll get into that. But the receiver position, man, it feels like there's a different guy every game. So.
Yeah, I think when you start to talk about the receiving position, I felt like that when you looked at Jalen Cropper, I felt like that he was going into this game was ahead of the other receivers. I kind of feel like the group is now squished or shrunk, if you want to say. He could have gone out there and taken this job, and I don't feel like that he did that. Yeah. And so now you've got some others. They've tried the Racey McMass and others. They might have 2 catches. They might have 4 catches. And then you watch the special teams tape, and all of a sudden Racey McMath is playing right flyer, and they run him down there, and then he gets blocked inside, and now the ball's going up the sidelines for a big play. They're trying to figure this thing out. You mentioned with I mentioned with Cropper, the fumble, on the return. They're trying to play these guys in special teams roles to see if they're going to work out. And unfortunately, I think Cropper has brought this thing back to where this game against the Chargers, depending on if you keep 5 or 6 receivers, this thing's really an open competition. There's going to be some decisions that are going to have to be made there. My guys that I liked, I will say this. I've got, as I've seen from camp and some of the work, I've got John Stevens as my second tight end here behind Ferguson. But I'll say this, and I'll say it from this way. Ferguson and Schoonmaker better blocking in this game. Much better.
Than they've had in the past.
You were worried some about, now, Stevens had a play where it was the toss and it went for a negative play. That, he's just got to understand, if it's coming your side, you got to work your hips around. You got to pin that guy to the inside and don't get beat the way he did. I think there was a little bit of indecision on his part. But other than that, some of the backside blocks that he had, some of the point of attack blocks, the combination blocks that Luke Schoonmaker and Guyton were able to make to allow a Deuce Vaughn to maybe sneak up inside or bounce to the outside because of some of that work. So I really did like what the tight ends were able to do
real quick,
in this game.
On that 12-yard run that Deuce had, I think it was his first run, was that John Stevens that had his guy like 5 yards down the field?
There was the I'm trying to think of the exact play you're talking about, but Stevens had a couple of blocks where he was into his guy, and there was that movement downfield. Yeah. The first run of the game was Schoonmaker and actually Guyton. They were able to get their guy off the ball as well.
I'm thinking about that. It was the play where Deuce had the run around the right side, but he kind of went up into the line and then he kind of broke out to the right and went. I think it was a 12-yard run, but on that play, it seemed like I saw John Stevens with his guy way down the field.
He did a much better job. The thing with Stevens, big improvement there. Schoonmaker, they had a deal where they got in space, where they ran that play. We've seen this play 1,000 times with Dak, where they used to bring like Dalton Schultz in front and he would lead on the RPO.
And Schoonmaker whiffed.
And Schoonmaker got out in space, and he's got to plaster that guy and try and knock him to the sidelines. Yeah. He kind of got a little wonky there in space, and you're like thinking, okay, man, if you get that block, maybe it's a turn up and a little bit more yards. But overall, I'm just looking at these point of attack blockers for these tight ends, and I thought for the most part this group wasn't as poor as we've seen them before.
Yeah, and if I could shout out the offensive line, you look at Cooper Beebe, man, a phenomenal game that he had. Building on that Week 1 performance, was Week 1 perfect? No, but I felt like he laid some really good groundwork going into Week 2. Man, I think coming out of this game, we have Cooper Beebe maybe taking the edge in that center battle. Yeah. And I think we're going to have that one really come down to the wire coming out of Week 3. But, I mean, if it's a situation where the coaches look at it and they say, okay, if we give Cooper Beebe reps early in the season, maybe he's not where Brock Hoffman is right now, let's just say that's the thought, then who's to say he won't be exceeding those expectations by the end of the year? And I think that's where youth could probably benefit Cooper Beebe a little bit more. But, I still do believe in Brock Hoffman. I still think that is a guy who's capable of being a starting center. But you look at Beebe and what he's been bringing to the table and how he has continuously been getting better as the weeks have gone on. That's big-time stuff. And then you look at Tyler Guyton, also a really strong game, but I think the more reps that he puts out there, the less I'm feeling confident about his hand placement.
His hands are
not good. His hands are super wide, and they come around like almost in the biceps of edge guys. I want to see him get up in the chest plate a little bit more. I mean, you look at guys like Myles Garrett, who he's going to see Week 1. If he comes right into his chest plate, that's going to be a little bit different for him. So I want to see him maybe adjust the hands a little bit better because that's going to bite him at some point. But overall, I mean, you see the strength, you see the power, and sometimes that overwhelms bad technique.
Man, I'm so glad you pointed that out because there were like 4 or 5 clips where I looked at it and I'm like, his technique right now is butt, hands outside, and then trying to reset. He's such a good foot athlete that if he gets a little forward, he can recover.
Right.
But there's a lot of times you see those hands, you see those white gloves on the outside shoulders of those black jerseys that the Raiders were wearing the other day, and I was thinking like, man, he is going to – they're going to coach him up on this, but you're absolutely right. Hands on that breastplate for control. When you get hands outside, that gives the defender the opportunity to get to your body. And the really, really good defenders will take you and they'll grab you and pull you out of the way there. And so
if you're lucky.
Yeah,
or
if you're lucky. If you're lucky.
Yeah.
The thing with Beebe, there was only one time I saw him the second level, and you might remember, he went there. The ball went to the left, and he went to an area where the defender was instead of where he was going to be. And the second time around they ran the play, he got it right. So it's like, okay, I made a mistake the first time. I ran out there and the guy beat me across. Yep. Now I know, okay, I've got to go a little bit further in front, cut that guy off, and then it allowed the play to develop. But I thought overall the young guys, and shout out though to, and we don't give much of a shout out to guys, Matt Waletzko played that whole game at right tackle. And so shout out to him. That was not an easy task dealing with Crosby and those guys out there. It wasn't pretty, but he managed to play the whole game. He took one for the team. He's probably going to have to take another one for the team on Saturday against the Chargers, but a shout out to him for the effort he had.
I really do think the offensive line, top to bottom, played really well in that game against the Raiders. Awesome Richards, I felt like, had an awesome day too at left guard. He feels natural there. I mean, you look at his body type.
They'll
and
tell you that
they
think he's a better tackle.
Yeah, and I don't see it yet. They also think Chuma Edoga's a better tackle, and I think he's a better guard. So I'm not 100% sure I align with that.
You're not buying
belief.
that one, huh?
Yeah, I know.
All
so
right.
I like what Awesome Richards brings to the table in the interior.
He's done a good
I
job.
hope they can let him kind of develop there. But top to bottom, I really like that offensive line performance. No sacks allowed. Running game was getting some lanes. I liked what I saw.
So if you guys had to name one player that going into this final game against the Chargers needs a great performance in order to give himself a shot to be able to make this team, who would it be?
A shot. Can I give one offense, one defense?
Sure, absolutely.
On offense, I'm going to go with Tyron Billy Johnson.
Yeah.
You look at this receiver battle and that last spot. Jalen Cropper had his opportunity last week. Ryan Flanoy had his opportunity this week. I think it's the Tyron Billy Johnson opportunity going into the Chargers game. It's his former team as well, so maybe a little bit of angst there that he'll be able to take into that one. But he's played only roughly 2 or 3 series in each game, and he's only had 1 target and 0 receptions. I would have to assume that they want to get Tyron Billy Johnson involved a little bit more. I was able to talk to some folks last week, and it just kind of happened as the natural game plan went on, that they were focusing in on Tyron Billy Johnson against the Rams. And I see similar situations that were arising from the Raiders, but it was a couple of instances where, he was getting open downfield, but it was outside the numbers, and Trey Lance, he hasn't been really pushing it downfield like that. So, especially early in games, and that's when Tyron Billy Johnson has had his opportunities. On the defensive side of the ball, I think it's Eric Scott. He needs to have a good game. You look at Keemon Hall, again, I think he's pushing for a roster spot at this point. You look at Andrew Booth, obviously is going to have a roster spot. So I think if you're Eric Scott, you need to have a really good game on Saturday and prove that you're worthy of having a 53 spot.
Real quick, you just said Booth is going to have a spot, so you think at this point Booth is in no matter what?
I think he is. Okay. I think he is.
Yeah, to me, I like what you did with Eric Scott there. I think that maybe Eric Scott's fate might already be sealed. I'm going to throw a name out there that people are going to go, what are you talking about, Broadus? Albert Huggins at defensive tackle. He was not very good against the Rams in Los Angeles.
A pushover, if you will.
A pushover. All you have to do is put a Rams polo on a quarterback of the other team, and you might have a shot. But I'm going to say, I think Albert Huggins, they're trying to kind of figure out this defensive tackle rotation. I think they're trying to figure out the 3 technique stuff too. We'll see with Phillips. He plays a lot of 3. He might be playing more 1. But I kind of feel like, though, that he showed enough, flashed enough, that you would think that maybe they would keep him around because he does have some flexibility, but he did show some pass rush ability. He did show some ability to play the run. He had a terrible, like I say, the practice out here with all that went down. But he's a guy that when you watch him play, those flash players. You see it in his game. So I do feel like, though, too, that we're battling for that last corner spot. You mentioned Eric Scott. I think that you could talk about Hall in there. And maybe, I don't know how you guys feel about McQuamu, but I think he's kind of in that mix too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so there's the receivers, defensive linemen, and then the defensive backs, especially at corner, I think there's still stuff to be playing for Saturday.
Go ahead.
I'll say this about Huggins. That whole situation, I mean, if he didn't have a legitimate shot at making the roster, they would have cut him after that situation.
Yeah.
So I do think there is a legitimate opportunity for him on the table. He's going to have to go out there and grab it on Saturday.
The interesting thing about Mukuamu, I think, is that he has a little bit of position flex. And I don't know that there are a lot of guys that have that kind of position flex. Go ahead.
Okay, now when you say position flex, I think we feel good about the safeties, right?
Yeah.
Position flex means he can play corner, he can play safety.
Yep.
I think they're taking care of it safety.
That's fine. I
think I'm looking for the pure corner guy now is what I'm looking at. But his metrics the other day in that game, they threw 4 targets at him and they were no catches.
Yeah.
He's quietly he has those moments where you're playing games where the separation is not big, the tight window throws or tight window throws with him. He's got a lot of the metrics and things that you really, really like in a corner. But the position flex part, man, I'm looking at a team now. I'm looking at a team that's got some safeties. I don't know if you have to have the position flex with him anymore.
Well, but they may only decide that they want to keep 4 of those safeties. And if you keep 4 of them, as we know, as we've seen
they could go
happen,
6 and 4 easy.
My point is, if you keep 4 of those, all it takes is 1 game or 2 games where you lose 2 guys.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden you are strapped. Yeah. Having that guy who has the ability to kind of flip over there.
No, you're right.
Especially if you think he's a good corner as well.
Right.
That does add some value to your team that you may not have, especially if he can play special teams on top of that.
In addition, he was getting a lot of nickel reps in that game on Saturday.
Absolutely.
So that's I think whenever you look at
secondary
versatility, he can play any spot.
Yeah, no, that's the thing about it. There's a lot of positive things about him. And I always felt like he had 1 foot in the parking lot. He was kind of like Nashawn Wright to me. They're like, okay, it's year 4, here we go. What do you got going here? And so it makes a lot of sense, though.
Yeah. All right, we're going to take our final break. We'll come back, and I'm going to go through some of these positions, and I want to get some ideas from you guys on not only what you saw, but kind of where you see things shaking out with some of these guys. Some of these names you've already mentioned, but we want to put it in context from the position standpoint. We'll do that when we come back. DallasCowboys.com radio.
It's the official men's skincare brand of the Dallas Cowboys, Jack Black. And right now, Cowboys fans can get 15% off their $75 order. Plus, because every deal needs a playmaker, your order will include a free 5-piece skincare set and free shipping. The Jack Black Playmaker is 4 of Jack's favorites and a full-sized intense therapy lip balm. Make a play for the Playmaker at getjackblack.com/Cowboys with the code CowboysVIP. That's getjackblack.com/Cowboys with the code CowboysVIP.
They say champions are remembered, but legends are never forgotten. United Ag & Turf offers a winning lineup of John Deere equipment built to tackle any challenge on and off the field. Legendary John Deere tractors, combines, residential mowers, commercial mowers, compact construction equipment, Gator utility vehicles, and a full line of golf and sports turf equipment. United Ag & Turf, the official Ag & Turf equipment supplier of the Dallas Cowboys. Visit UnitedAgAndTurf.com to find a location near you.
If you can't be at the stadium, there's no better way to watch your Cowboys than on an LG OLED Evo TV. That's because everything you see is more lifelike. Every play, every hit. I mean, you might as well be on the sidelines. That's how clear it is. It's all thanks to LG's legendary technology. Perfect black, over 8.3 million self-lit pixels. No one comes close. LG OLED Evo is the best TV in the game for a reason. See for yourself at lg.com/OLED Evo.
From the field to the festivities, Lucchese embodies the essence of luxury and tradition. Handcrafted with meticulous precision, each pair offers unmatched comfort and style. Stand tall while you're tailgating or cheering in the stands with the Dallas Cowboys Collection by Lucchese. Shop the collection today at the Lucchese store at the Star in Frisco or online at lucchese.com. Lucchese, the official boot of the Dallas Cowboys and Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
Back to the break.
AT&T, connecting changes everything.
Here we go.
Welcome back. It is the final segment of the break. We are live from Oxnard, California, and it is our final segment here in Oxnard before we head back to Frisco.
No.
It's been a good camp. It's been a really good camp so far, and I think we've gotten a lot done. I think this team has gotten a lot done. There are a lot of things that were kind of hazy, I think, going into camp that I think have cleared up a lot for me from the standpoint of where I'm looking at this team and what I think their possibilities are at this point.
Fair. Yeah. That's fair. I look on the defensive side of the ball, and compared to where I came into camp with the idea of Mike Zimmer's first-year defense compared to what I'm coming out with, I feel really confident that this is a better unit, on this team. And I'm not sure I could have said that coming in. Experience, depth. I think depth is probably the biggest thing, and that second level, the linebacking.
You think they
core.
replaced the
depth?
depth?
Was it. That for me. That was it.
It
the
was the
linebackers
linebacker
are what
core.
changes this defense.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
the linebackers will make this run defense better too.
Absolutely.
But you say the depth because a lot of depth went out the door.
Yeah.
Do you feel like the depth that went out the door, the Armstrongs, the Fowlers, the Curses, those kinds of guys, you think that they've replaced or have they shown enough? Obviously have, because you think it's something they've gotten better at.
I wouldn't say they've necessarily replaced the edge depth or the defensive tackle depth, because you lose a guy like Hankins too. That's certainly a part of that. I still have some questions up front, don't get me wrong, but they are doing a lot to address those bodies. They're going and getting Carl Lawson. They're going and trading for Jordan Phillips. They're being proactive in that sense, and I think that second level is just going to be able to help out the entire defense. I really do feel like the linebackers that they have added, not only from getting Overshown back from injury, but Kendricks in free agency, drafting Leofau, and the steps that he's taken in his rookie minicamp, I feel really good about the entire defense because of that unit.
I'd like to thank Dan Quinn for something, and maybe this is the wrong way of doing it, but thank you for not taking Al Harris with you.
No doubt.
I think Al Harris has been the guy that I really love watching coach. I think the secondary has responded to him. I think Mike Zimmer never have coached with him, known Al Harris from his days in Green Bay and playing and those kinds of things. I think you have to respect. He is a guy that he shows emotion, he shows passion. These guys respond to him the way he coaches. He's not a yeller screamer guy, but man, when his kids make plays, he's with them. He's fired up for them. But these guys are playing in the right spot. The safety room, I think, is better. The corners look better. Just the way the techniques and stuff. You could bring guys in off the street, bring a trade for a guy, Booth, and what he ends up with 8 tackles. He has to cover, but you throw him in the mix, and now all of a sudden he's making plays with the thought of, hey, he's made my team, that kind of thing. So I really do like what they, coming out of camp, what I've seen, how the defensive staff has really come together here with that. And I'll say this also too, I feel like, though, that the young linemen, I think we got to where we were all thinking this journey was going to go. We'll see if the final chapter is BB as the starting center, but I kind of think we're getting towards the end of that novel, that you're going to get what we thought coming out of the draft show, that you're going to get the left tackle and the center. And so I think that's something that I was looking forward to seeing. I think we're getting to that point.
Yeah, when you look at this defense, and you kind of mentioned this, but when I look at it, I think, okay, you lost Curse. I think Bell is every bit as capable as Curse, maybe even more capable than Curse.
Better cover guy, for sure.
No doubt. I think he may be even more capable. I heard you say this the other day, Brian, about Phillips. Phillips is Hankins with a little more pass rush.
Yeah.
On paper.
Yeah.
So if he is on paper, if he is on the field what we think he is on paper,
Right.
again, you've maybe gotten better at that position than you were before. I think these linebackers are appreciably better than what they were last year, mainly because of injury. When you lost Leighton Vander Esch, that was a huge hit. I think they've improved there. You get Trayvon back. I think you look at this defense, and you can make the argument, even with the loss of Armstrong and Fowler, you can make the argument that this defense is going to be better than it was last year. That's something I didn't know going into training camp, and now I feel a lot better about the defense. I think at this point, the real issue is just going to be the pass rush. Are you going to be able to get the pass rush from the guys that are new to this defense that you didn't have last year? You know Micah's going to be Micah. You know Tank's going to be Tank.
Nealon.
What does your rotation look like? And that actually leads me to that position. When you talk about the edge guys, Nealon, Golston, Fehoko, the guys that played this last week, what did you see from them this last week from a standpoint of pass rush was it better than what you saw the game before? Is it pretty much the same? And are you at all concerned about the level of pass rush you're going to get from these guys?
For me, it was pretty much the same.
Yeah.
I still like what Marshawn Nealon was doing in the run game specifically, but from a pass rush perspective, I didn't see a whole lot of push being generated from that edge group. Granted, you get Carl Lawson. You can see what maybe he can bring to the table as early as this Saturday. Al-Qadim Muhammad, I think the more snaps and more reps that he gets in the system, I think he's going to be a beneficial addition to that room. But all in all, I need to see more from that edge group behind Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence, because I'm theorizing a situation where you're playing, Baltimore in week 3, and you're about to get off the field on 3rd down. It's 3rd and 5. You can't make a stop. Okay, that rotation unit needs to come in. It's 1st and 10. They're at the 50, and then that rotation unit can't get any pressure on Lamar Jackson, and there's another big play right there on 1st down. So they need a good rotational set. I'm hoping that Carl Lawson can be one of those guys, as well as Al-Qadim Muhammad. I love what Muhammad's done out here. Yeah. I think he's going to make this team and be asked to play quite a bit. So those are the 2 guys I'm looking at to step up, and obviously Marshawn Nealon too.
And that's where I think we disagree a little bit. I think it's going to come down to Wheat or Muhammad.
Wheat, okay.
Yeah, and nothing I know. I'm just watching is they very well could go with the veteran guy with Muhammad. I just think that the fact that they've kept Wheat around and he's been in the system and stuff, that maybe they feel like, okay, here's a guy that when they both have that ability to come off the ball, they both have the ability, but they just don't always finish. That's the thing about it. I think that's the biggest thing with the pass rush, or the lack of, that we haven't seen here, is where have been those finishes. There's been times the Rams, I think, got the ball out quick. The Raiders the other day weren't interested in holding the ball very much either. They really weren't accurate throwing the ball either. It didn't matter. I mean, the pressure, they were all over the place throwing the ball.
The one advantage to your argument is that Tyrus Wheat has the special teams experience, and I think he's a better special teams player.
See, that to me, and I appreciate you bringing that up, because we've seen what Bone Fossil has done, and I know we were on break and I was mentioning about roster spots, and I was talking about Goodwin, and I'm thinking, am I really going to have to put a young corner on the street because I have a core special teams guy that I think is okay? Now, they'll argue with me. They'll fight with me all day, and they'll say, hey, you're wrong about he brings this. I don't know. I don't know if this day and age, unless that guy's like that guy at New England that was a Hall of Fame special teams player, or Bill Bates or something like, unless it's that type of guy. If you're a difference maker, I get it. But do we have a difference maker? Is a difference maker keeping me from having a corner here?
How much has the change in the kickoff rules affected that? Because you still need that guy that can go down there as a gunner on punt.
Right.
But as a kick, when you don't have to worry about that in the kick game, like does that change things for you?
I think your most important people are the 3 guys: the snapper, the snapper, the punter, and the kicker. I think everybody else is, you try and find ways. Yeah, if you've got a badass special teams guy that can't play any of their positions, I get it. Having that guy, I get it. But I think it has changed. If all of a sudden a roster spot on this team is taken by a guy he's a core guy, we love him, that kind of thing. If I saw a difference maker every play that he was on the field, I would say, yeah, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not sure I see a difference maker every time I strap it up here and look at it, and that would bother me as a personnel guy in the room. Is like, okay, why I'm arguing? I can't keep one of my safeties, or I can't keep a wide receiver, or I can't keep one of these backs because I have a core guy that's a good player, but not a difference maker. That's when team building, to me, gets a little hairy with special teams coaches. That's my opinion on that.
Jeff, thought on that?
Yeah, I'm sitting here thinking about it and trying to think about his preseason usage as well. And I think not seeing a whole lot of him in the preseason kind of tells you that, they're expecting him to be on the roster whenever cut day does come around. But it's a fascinating argument.
Well, they're going
to
use him.
Really thought of.
They're going to use him as that piece where they cut. Now the rules have changed. You can put 2 IR guys on. I've learned that today.
Yeah.
And get them back, that kind of thing. But they're going to use him as that vested veteran, like him, the snapper, the punter. If they need spots, good when those guys are going to be, and then 2 days later, and then they'll be back. They're going to play the yo-yo game with these guys. But to me, in team building, if you could tell me he is an absolute difference maker. I mean, one of the best cover guys you had last year was
Sam Williams.
Sam Williams
Yeah.
as a gunner on the other side. Sam Williams, good or bad, made more plays than what Goodwin made. And I'm sure somebody in the organization will walk up to me and say, "You're full of S, Brian," and I'm like, "Fine." But I'm just if he's making every single tackle out there, or he's doing then okay, show me that.
Yeah.
All right, that's a wrap. We appreciate you guys this entire camp. We appreciate you tuning in, catching us every other day. We'll be back in Frisco next week. We'll be on Tuesday next week, Tuesday and Thursday next week. I think Cut Down Day will happen sometime next week. I'm not sure exactly which day, but we'll be covering all of that. And then we'll get into the season. We'll get into our regular episodes every single day. August 27th, that's Cut Day.
A week from today.
What is that? A week from today?
Yep.
Okay, so next Tuesday, off Cut. So we'll be covering that. We'll have some content for you guys, as we always do. And then we'll get into that next week, the week of Labor Day. That's when we'll start our daily shows every day, starting that Tuesday through Friday that week, getting you ready for the open of the 2024 season. Till then, for Brian Broaddus, Nick Harris, we appreciate you guys joining us here live on Dallas Cowboys The Break.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.